What the? Oh, yeah. Appalachian folk have an odd relationship with death. We like to sing about it. We really like to sing about the details of it. Want to know why? Well, sit down. This is gonna take a minute. First things first. What does this have to do with Appalachian folk magic or witchcraft? Check the description. There's a little something special in the links. Alright. According to English and Scottish Popular Ballads by Child, Sargent, and Kittredge, a ballad is a song that tells a story, or, to take the other point of view, a story told in song. So, what's a murder ballad? Well, it's a song that tells the story of a murder. I grew up in the foothills of North Carolina, not too awful far from Wilkes County. Naturally, one murder ballad I grew up with is Tom Dooley. It's about the 1866 murder of Laura Foster by Tom Dooley. If you're further south, you might be more familiar with The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia by Vicki Lawrence. Oh, well, you might know that one from Reba McEntire. Those not ringing any bells for you? How about Two Black Cadillacs by Carrie Underwood? Or Goodbye Earl by the Dixie Chicks? No country music, huh? Okay, fine. How about Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix? Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen? Ballad of Hollis Brown by Bob Dylan? Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Nirvana? Wait, you didn't know these were murder ballads? Oh, well, maybe you should give them a listen again. I'll link them below, and I promise not to tell anyone you didn't know, okay? Real quick, let's look at the lyrics of 3 different murder ballads from 3 different time periods to give you an idea of how these songs tell their type of stories. First, let's look at an old classic, Tom Dooley. I met her on the mountain, there I took her life. Met her on the mountain, stabbed her with my knife. Now, let's look at one from 90s grunge. Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Nirvana. Her husband was a hard-working man, just about a mile from here. His head was found in a driving wheel, but his body never was found. Lastly, let's look at one from this year. Perfect Way to Die by Alicia Keys. Simple walk to the corner store. Mama never thought she would be getting a call from the coroner. Said her son's been gunned down. Been gunned down. Can you come now? While the words we use changes over time, what doesn't change about these songs is the no-nonsense way they tell what happened to the victim. It's often very graphic. At times, the chorus or melody of the song is used to offset this aspect. Okay, why do we turn these stories into songs? How did this tradition end up here, and why are we making new songs still? Well, let's look at ballads first. Ballads, as an oral tradition of spreading information, is something that is well documented historically. This is discussed in the introduction of English and Scottish Popular Ballads by the previously mentioned authors. They link it back to old broadsides. A broadside is a single piece of paper with the ballad written on it that is passed out to a group of people. Think of it as the old school version of a supermarket tabloid. Well, sort of. So, in the context of murder ballads, we're looking at an oral tradition of letting the populace know the details of someone's death and what happened to their attacker, whether that be a trial, the revenge of the victim via ghost, or community sought justice. Now, we know from sources linked below that the origins of these types of songs come from England, Scotland, and Ireland. We also know from my previous video that Appalachia was settled by the Scottish and Irish in larger proportions than other groups. From this, I think it's safe to conclude that the people bringing their culture with them also brought the tradition of using ballads to spread information, and within that, the tradition of murder ballads. But just to see if we can follow a song and make those connections, let's look at Knoxville Girl and see where that takes us. If we compare Knoxville Girl, which is set in Tennessee, to the Wexford Girl, which is set in Ireland, we can see these two pretty much have the same bones, if you'll pardon the expression. Now, looking at the Wexford Girl and comparing that to the Oxford Girl, which is a murder ballad from England, again, we see these songs have the same bones. I'll link these songs below if you want to give them a listen. From the migration of people to tracing one song backwards in time, I think the connection of the Appalachia tradition of murder ballads to the Irish and then to the English traditions are well supported here. An interesting thing to note at this point is that once murder ballads reached America, or began to be written here, the supernatural elements were removed and replaced with people close to the victim or members of the community exacting revenge instead of the ghost of the victim. I haven't come across a source yet that posits an explanation for this, so if you happen to know of one, drop it in the comments below. So, why do we turn these stories into songs? The answer really depends on the song. It could be a warning to would-be attackers or would-be victims, like Tom Dooley or Knoxville Girl. It could be a song for a movie soundtrack, like The Hanging Tree. Or it could be to make sure we never forget a moment in our history, like, well, any number of songs in times past. Some of you may be wondering, why the heck do we still write these types of songs? We have mainstream media now. We have news crews inside courtrooms. We can just watch it all on TV, read about it on social media, or in the newspaper, right? Well, how about I answer that with a list of names? George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Eric Gardner, Trayvon Martin. Now, think about songs released this year, 2020. Ones like Perfect Way to Die by Alicia Keys. Thinking about them? Good. Now, who gave you more context? Mainstream media or the songwriters? Even today, we trust our songwriters to put us in the shoes of the person in the song, more than we trust news outlets to give us the whole story. Some of us still trust our oral traditions to tell us what's going on. Well, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Punch that like button, smack the bell, jump up and down on the subscribe button a bit. Maybe knocking them around will make them work. Now, help or get out of the way.